A lessee signs an agreement to lease a sales outlet for 5 years. Lease payments are paid at year ends. The lease payments for the 5 years shall be 1% of the sales achieved in year 1. The lessee achieved sales of 1,500,000 during the first year. The lessee's incremental borrowing rate is 6%. Figure out the lease liability and the right-of-use asset on and after the commencement date. In this example, the lease payments are not known on the commencement date because they are based on the sales achieved during the first year, which are not known yet. Therefore, lease liability and the right of use are not recognized on the commencement date. Later at the end of year 1, sales achieved during the first year were 1,500,000. So, the lease payment for the first year equal 1% of 1,500,000 sales, which is 15,000. But since this payment is based on a variable other than a rate or an index, which is sales in this example, then the payment for the first year is not included in the measurement of the lease payments. Instead, it is charged to the profit and loss. Starting from the second year, the lease payment for the remaining years are calculated at 1% of sales achieved during the first year, which means that the payments for the remaining years will be fixed till the end of the lease and the variability is resolved. Therefore, a lease liability should be recognized at the end of year 1, which is the present value for the remaining 4 payments calculated as of the end of year 1. So let us do our workings. The lessee's incremental borrowing rate is 6%. The lease term is 5 years. Sales during the first year amounted to 1,500,000. So, the periodic payment is 1% of sales, 15,000. List the years of the lease term from 1 to 5 in the first column. The payment for the first year is charged to the profit and loss, as it is a variable payment that is based on a variable other than a rate or an index, so it is not included in the calculation of the lease liability. As for the remaining lease payments, insert the number of periods that will be used to discount each of the remaining lease payments to the end of the first year. Then the annual payments of 15,000, and as we explained, starting from the second year, the annual payments are included in the lease payments, because the variability in the annual payments was resolved by the beginning of the second year, and the payments became fixed till the end of the lease. Calculate the present value factors in the next column. Then the present value for each payment calculated at the end of the first year. Adding up, and we get the carrying amount of the lease liability at the end of the first year. The right-of-use asset includes the initial measurement of the lease liability at the end of the first year. Nothing was mentioned in the example about any other components for the right-of-use asset. So this is the carrying amount of the right-of-use asset at the end of the first year. Then the lease amortization schedule, same as before. This is the end of this lecture about the components to be included in the lease payments.